On June 27, 1950, President Harry S. Truman announced that he was ordering U.S. air and naval forces to South Korea to aid the democratic nation in repulsing an invasion by communist North Korea. The United States was undertaking a major military operation. In addition to ordering U.S. forces to Korea, Truman also deployed the U.S. 7th Fleet to Formosa, Taiwan, to guard against invasion by communist China. He ordered an acceleration of military aid to French forces fighting communist guerrillas in Vietnam. At the Yalta Conference towards the end of World War II, the United Nations, the USSR, and Great Britain agreed to divide Korea into two separate occupation zones. The country was split along the 38th parallel, with Soviet forces occupying the northern zone and Americans stationed in the south. In 1947, the United States and Great Britain called for free elections throughout Korea, but the Soviets refused to comply. In May 1948, the Korean Democratic People's Republic, a communist state, was proclaimed in North Korea. In August, the Democratic Republic of Korea was established in South Korea. By 1949, both the United States and the USSR had withdrawn the majority of their troops from the Korean peninsula. 50 years ago, on June 27, 1976, Air France Flight 139, an Airbus A300B4-203 from Ben Gurion International Airport in Israel to Charles de Gaulle International Airport in France, with a stopover in Athens International Airport in Greece, was hijacked by two Arab terrorists from the Popular Front for the Liberation of Palestine External Operations, Jael al-Arja and Fayez Abdul Rahim al-Jaber, from under orders of Wadi Haddad, who had earlier broken away from the PFLP of George Habash, and two West German terrorists, Wilfried Buza and Brigitte Kuhlmann, from the German revolutionary cells. The terrorist hijackers forced the hijacked plane to divert to Libya and then to Uganda, where they landed at Entebbe International Airport to be joined by other terrorists. Once in Uganda, the group was supported by Ugandan dictator Idi Amin. The terrorists held the passengers and crew hostage in an effort to force the release of 40 so-called Palestinians and allied terrorists imprisoned in Israel, along with 13 additional prisoners being held in 4 other countries. After the aircraft landed, more than 100 Ugandan soldiers were deployed to assist the terrorists. Ugandan leader Idi Amin, who had known about the hijacking from the outset, personally greeted the terrorists at Entebbe International Airport. The hostages were moved to an unused airport terminal where the hijackers segregated Israeli passengers and several non-Israeli Jewish passengers from the rest of the group and placed them in a separate room. Over the following 2 days, 148 non-Israeli hostages were released and flown to Paris, France. The remaining 94 passengers, most of them Israeli, along with the 12-member Air France crew, continued to be held captive. Within the Israeli government, officials initially debated whether to meet the terrorists' demands or launch a military response. The terrorists had threatened to kill the 106 remaining hostages if the prisoners they demanded were not released. Based on intelligence gathered by Mossad, Israel ultimately decided to carry out a rescue mission. The operation's planners also prepared for the possibility of armed resistance from the Ugandan military loyal to Amin. We will finish it on the 3rd of July. On June 27, 1982, STS-4 took place when the Space Shuttle Columbia launched on its 4th mission with a crew of 2 NASA astronauts. The 2 crew members consist of Commander Ken Mattingly on his first Space Shuttle mission and his second space flight, and pilot Henry Hartsfield on his first space flight. Due to parachute malfunctions, the solid rocket boosters were not recovered. STS-4 marked the final test mission of NASA's Space Shuttle program. Following its successful completion, the Space Shuttle was officially declared operational. During the flight, The Columbia carried a variety of scientific experiments and research payloads, along with military equipment designed to detect missile launches. On June 27, 1991, the 10-day war was fought between the Slovenian Territorial Defense and the Slovenian National Police Force on one side and the Yugoslav People's Army on the other, following Slovenia's declaration of independence from Yugoslavia. The conflict was the second war of the Yugoslav wars to begin in 1991 after the Croatian War of Independence, and it was by far the shortest and least deadly of the wars. Its brief duration was largely due to the fact that the Yugoslav People's Army, although composed of various Yugoslav nationalities, was dominated by Serbs and Montenegrins and was unwilling to devote significant resources to Slovenia. Slovenia was viewed as ethnically homogeneous and of little strategic importance to the Yugoslav leadership. At the same time, the military was increasingly focused on the conflict in Croatia, where Serbian and Montenegrin leaders believed they had greater territorial interests. In the documentary, The Death of Yugoslavia, archival footage shows Slobodan Milosevic stating that he opposed using the Yugoslav army in Slovenia. Meanwhile, Borislav Jovic remarked that once Slovenia had left the Federation, the government would be in a stronger position to dictate terms to Croatia. On June 27, 1994, the Matsumoto sarin attack occurred in Matsumoto, Nagano Prefecture when the Japanese doomsday cult Aum Shinrikyo released sarin aerosol from a converted refrigerator truck in the Kaichi Heights area. 8 people were murdered and more than 500 were harmed. The attack was perpetrated 9 months before the better-known Tokyo subway sarin attack. And 1 year later, in 1995, STS-71 took place when the space shuttle Atlantis launched on its 14th spaceflight with a total of 7 that are going up and a total of 8 going down. The space shuttle Atlantis became the first space shuttle to dock with the Russian space station Mir. The mission delivered replacement cosmonauts Anatoly Solovyev and Nikolai Budarian to the station and brought home American astronaut Norman Thagard along with Gennady Strikalov and Vladimir Deshurov. Atlantis landed safely on July 7th with a crew of 8, becoming only the second shuttle mission to return with 8 people aboard following STS-61A. While docked for 5 days, Atlantis and Mir formed the largest spacecraft complex ever assembled in orbit at that time. The mission achieved several important milestones, including the first docking between a space shuttle and a space station, the first crew transfer between the two, and the 100th crewed spaceflight launched by the United States. STS-71 also carried the Space Lab, delivered supplies to Mir, and supported a range of joint American-Russian scientific experiments. These included life science research conducted aboard Spacelab and the Shuttle Amateur Radio Experiment 2, which allowed astronauts to communicate with amateur radio operators on Earth. Well, that's all the historical events I have for today. If you like what you hear, don't forget to leave a comment down below and subscribe. This is Stephen Luke, and I'll see you next time for another historical milestone video. I hope you all have a nice day, and I hope you all have the best days of summer. Stay cool.